Commentary Booth is a show for media lovers by media lovers just like you. If you want to support the show, go to pariomagazine.com.au. Welcome to the Commentary Booth, where we watch, and you guessed it, commentate on the week that was in movies and TV. I'm your host and play-by-play commentator, Jamie Apps, and each week I'm joined by a rotating cast of colour commentators to help you find your next viewing treat. This week I'm joined by a teacher and travel blogger who lists their favourite movie as Fight Club and favourite TV show as Band of Brothers. Welcome back to the show, the now king of aqua golf and my own personal Cortana, Buddy McClelland.
Thank you for having me back. Everything's aqua at the moment.
Yeah. Aqua golf, aqua driving, just sitting at home.
I had my dog at dog daycare today flooded, so I had to go and rescue her. So it was almost aqua dogs.
Does she's just still not a fan of the water?
No, hates it. Hates it. She's supposed to be like a little hunting dog and just refuses to go in.
She's Anne's dog.
Yeah, I don't know. The seagulls have got her a couple of times. She's very bird focused, so we'll chase a seagull into the water, but then realizes she's in the water and gives up. So some of the seagulls have worked that out, so they just fly along the beach and she just runs away.
She just chases them at the edge of the water, like,
yeah,
can't get you.
Super frustrating.
That's funny. As a life otherwise, you haven't washed away, obviously.
I haven't washed away, thankfully, considering I'm in a 9th-story apartment. I should hopefully be okay. But yeah, there's a lot of flooding happening. It's just crazy. The most rain I've ever seen. And as a teacher, we've had now probably 4 or 5 days of being closed or just not being able to get to work. And I don't remember, like when you or I were at school, I don't remember ever having a flood day.
No, and our school was on a goddamn floodplain.
Yeah, it was on a swamp.
And we never got, no, can't come in, it's too wet. Like, no, just come here and just sit in a classroom all day, even on breaks.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, climate change. At least it's got some positives of days off, but yeah, definitely different weather patterns.
Yep. And how's the Dragons treating you? That membership's really paying off at the moment.
Yeah, look, I don't watch NRL anymore. I've decided to shuffle. I was actually watching the Ultimate Lawn Bowls Championship earlier this afternoon. That's what I've resorted to.
At least you can play that indoors.
Yeah, they can play that indoors. They were playing indoors. Super exciting. But Dragons is something I'd prefer to forget about. I literally get workplace bullied because of that team.
Good.
By children, to be fair. But
still, that's probably worse.
It is. I've got no comeback. Like, what they always ask me, what happened to the Dragons? And I'm like, I don't know.
It's just terrible.
Yeah, just terrible. Dropping out good players, playing poorly, and hoping for the best.
At least with all the rain, you avoided having to go and watch them just get mauled by the Sharks.
That's true. But I hope that they could hear me booing from my balcony, which isn't that far away.
Fair enough. At least with the rain, there's plenty on streaming services and stuff to watch, and probably one that we've been waiting for a very long time, obviously based on my little intro of you being Cortana, the Halo series. What have you thought of it so far?
Because I'm the cute one.
Okay, you can be that. It's not because you're blue or anything.
Yeah, I have mixed feelings.
I'm the same.
Really, really want to like it. It was always going to be something hard because it was something that we were all begging for a good 12 years ago to have a Halo movie made, I think it was at first. And there were fake trailers and stuff that got made, and there was fake hype that happened. And I think we're all really excited for it back in the day. So I think immediately it had big shoes to fill. And then following on from all the success that The Mandalorian had, I think that it was always going to be tricky to try and make a good show that has a very similar, even just similar looking lead character.
And now the story is very similar too.
Yeah, I mean, and at first I found it a bit, it felt to me a little bit like Power Rangers for adults.
Yep.
But now I've grown into it a little bit. It's taken like the first 2 episodes that have come out. But I mean, for the first 15 minutes, I was like, what have they done? And I was a bit upset. It was always cool. Like I always get a little bit like excited when I see the Master Chief. And I was inches away, don't tell my wife, from buying a full-sized Master Chief helmet just to put into the little cupboard behind me. So the love is definitely still there. But yeah, I'm half in, half out on the story at the moment.
Yeah, I was the same. Like that opening action sequence, I was like, this is hype. This is pretty cool. But yeah, as the story went on, I was kind of just like, okay, do we need another space cowboy with a young child tagging along storyline? Like, I get that they've been making this for a long time. So like, they probably wrote this and had this all planned and were in production whilst The Mandalorian and everything was coming out, and they were kind of just like, crap. Like, we've got the exact same story. Our main character is a dude that's always in armor with a helmet on. We're very similar. Like, not much you can do about it. By that time, the ball's already rolling.
Yeah, but the first game came out when? Sort of 2002, 2001. I mean, they've had a good head start if they've wanted to do something.
Yeah, and like you said, they've been... there was a movie planned in... The first attempted to make a movie in 2001 between Fox and Universal. It was meant to be directed by Neil Blomkamp with Peter Jackson supervising, and then it just got out of hand budget-wise. Microsoft wanted way too much involvement in it, and it just eventually got to the point where they're like, nope, we're pulling the pin on this after they'd already spent $10 million on it.
Wow.
Yeah. The joys of being Fox, Universal, and Microsoft, like 3 of the biggest companies in the world, that they could kind of just eat that production budget and be like, oh, well, that's $10 million down the toilet that we'll never see again.
Yeah. They could have bought half a house in Sydney for that.
Half, maybe a bedroom. And then, yeah, so now they scrapped that, and now, 20 years later, we've got a TV show on Paramount Plus. Was originally meant to be on Showtime, and yeah, so now it's on Paramount Plus. We've had 2 episodes. I like that they've sort of come out and said this is using the Halo lore and characters, but we're not just redoing the game storyline. This is a whole separate canon universe, apparently. So, like, in the games, Master Chief's crew is the blue team. In this one, you hear him say they're the silver team. So it's a very similar storyline, but just different enough where they're allowed to sort of develop this storyline and this canon however it fits best for 10 or 12 episode TV show.
I like that, but it did take me a little while to get my head around it, because the similarity of the characters. You start doing what do I remember about Dr. Halsey, or what do I remember about this person or that person, or this covenant and that covenant. But it just got very complex in the game. So I think that's a really good idea to not make it more complex. And it does have enough stuff. Like, I think that's the good thing. If you're somebody that likes Halo, it's got enough stuff in it that even just when you see like a battle rifle or a pelican, or when they're on Reach or whatever like that, it just gives you those sort of little flashbacks, which have definitely kept me going through it. I think it's, a lot better to separate it from the Halo games in that sense. But then I think it does also get itself in a little bit of trouble by doing that. I don't know how you felt, but when the Master Chief took his helmet off for the first time, it kind of got me. Like, I was really enjoying. They did have a couple of really good little nods, especially in that first action sequence. Like you were saying, they had a couple of really good nods to the game where they went first person into the Master Chief's helmet. And then they had his shield drop and a lot of stuff. So it felt like the game. But when he took the helmet off and humanized it, I guess as a series to have a character that's like that makes it a lot better. But for me in the game, the mystery around the Master Chief was always something that made it exciting and a lot more possibility to it.
Yep. Yeah, I guess like you're saying, with a TV show, you kind of need to humanize the character. You can't just have this robotic super soldier, essentially. So they had to take his helmet off. But yeah, in the game, I guess he keeps the helmet on because as the player, you're also supposed to be Master Chief, I guess.
Yeah, and it takes away that mystery of it, and which is something I always like. Like, yeah, as a 13-year-old kid, as a 13-year-old boy, all you wanted to be was the Master Chief. So, yeah, it was good. I mean, there were other bits to it. I don't know how you felt about it, but it felt for me that something that was going to rely super heavily on the CGI of the Covenant, it just didn't sell it to me in the first part. I mean, it only had one sort of, the first episode was very battle heavy, and I really did like that the first couple of kills that the Covenant made.
Oh yeah,
the amount of gore that happened really showed you that it wasn't going to be a kids show.
Oh yeah.
But then
the moment that first
that,
plasma rifle hit someone, I was like, "Oh, geez, this!
Yeah,
I did not expect it to be like this."
Yeah. So yeah, they went heavy on that, and the energy swords they went quite heavy with, I thought as well. But it got to me a bit that it seemed like they were almost using the same CGI to me as they would have used in 2002 for the Covenant at that point. Like, it just wasn't quite there, which immediately kind of took me away from it. I really needed to believe that, and it just kind of took me back out of it a little bit. I thought the Spartans looked awesome. I thought the weapons all looked really good. I did get really frustrated that the weaponry that the regular humans were using, when they were shooting the Covenant, nothing happened. But then when the Master Chief picked up the exact same gun, he killed it pretty quickly.
Obliterated people, yeah.
Frustrated me. Like, it was the same, like, Warthog gun, the same turret, and the same sort of commando rifles that they use. One of them even used a pole at one point, like just a metal pole, and killed one of the elites. But these other guys are standing there with a turret, and it's doing nothing.
Yeah, there were some weird decisions. On that sort of CG front, there were a couple of moments where it looked really cool, like the close-up of the elite, the Covenant elite. That was really cool and looked really high quality. But then when you sort of zoomed out and saw them running from a distance or some parts like that, it was just like, oh, that looks really cheap, and like there's no weight to them. There was even moments where Master Chief was running and jumping. It was like, he doesn't look like he has any weight. Like, he just looks like he's floating across the ground. It was like, oh, that's not great. And then there was another moment where he threw his assault rifle on the ground, and it was very clearly a CGI assault rifle. I was like, what? Why didn't we just use a prop and weight it appropriately so it looked real when he threw it on the ground? We didn't need to spend a fortune on a CG rifle to do that. It looked terrible.
Yeah, I found that a couple of times. I think where there's one bit where the elite flips a car, and it seemed like that too. You could just see that it wasn't really quite connected. And then that immediately, I guess it's already going to have, because they've left it so long, it's going to have really high standards for people like you or I that want it to be perfect. And as soon as it isn't perfect, you're like, oh, okay, I'm out of it. But then thankfully, I think if you stick with it, ironically enough, for something that I really like for the fighting, the second episode particularly kind of drew me a bit more into the story. The second episode pretty much I don't think it had any fighting in it. But I found the CGI for that, and on Reach and on the
holograms looked really cool.
It was. Yeah, I found like overall it got me back into it. So for something that I expected a lot from the fighting, let me down a little bit, and I had no expectation of the storyline, kind of sucked me in a little bit. So I'll definitely keep watching it. But yeah, it was always going to have a high standard that it's not quite living up to just yet, but it hasn't done enough to send me off it.
Yeah, from what I've heard from the early reviews that people have had where they got given the first 4 episodes, they were saying, yeah, episodes 2, 3, and 4, they're the ones that really hook you in and make you want to finish the show, whereas that first one was kind of, here's just a ton of Easter eggs and sort of fan servicey moments to hook in hardcore Halo fans. But yeah, I think if you're a new person coming into this, it does come across as just a generic sci-fi story, very sort of Mandalorian-esque. and the CG could easily turn people off. They could see that and be like, this looks like a cheap, almost sci-fi channel show, whereas it's like, whatever, this isn't
Yeah,
going to
it
be
felt like
anything
the quality
good.
of Power Rangers with guns.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned sort of the sound effects as well. I thought some of those were really cool. Like the guns sounded right. The shield, like you said, the shield especially, that was an awesome moment. My one sort of complaint with the sound though was Halo has like probably one of the most iconic theme songs of all gaming.
Yeah.
Where was it? They didn't play it once.
They had modified versions of it, I found. Like there was that same song, but they didn't just do the actual song, which I have no idea why. There must be some reason for that. But yeah, I thought that too. Like they could definitely have had that full choir thing happening, but yeah, it was modified and odd. But I guess that's the show too. I feel like they're trying to make it the same, but pull it away at the same time as the games.
Yeah, I just feel like even like the title sequence, like I don't mind if the theme song isn't in the actual show, but just put it on the title sequence with the big full orchestra, and like people are going to see that and be like, oh, that sounds cool. Let me see what that is. But nope, we're just going to have this weird sort of a couple of little notes that are very similar, but then the rest is kind of electronic and weird. And I was just like, play the damn theme song. So pulled me out of it so
you
much.
learn from shows like Game of Thrones and other shows like that. The theme song can be a really powerful part to a show. Like literally when I get home for the new episodes of Game of Thrones, when they come out, the theme song would start and I'd be amped and I'd be ready to go. And I'd already be on a really positive footing before I'd even watched any part of any episode. So I think, yeah, you're right. They probably missed out on a lot of brownie points they could have had there.
Yep. And yeah, like you said, that Halo one, that does sort of go, it starts off slow and orchestral, but it really pumps up the energy when it gets towards the end. It's like, oh, that would really get me in the right mood for this show.
Yeah.
I was interested that they only showed Elite Covenant as well. Like, I'm keen to see.
Grunts are probably the funniest part.
I'm keen to see, if they bring in grunts or further in the series, brutes and jackals and the giant hunters, because even the elites in this show are huge. So
yeah
I understand why they didn't have grunts, because that could very easily spin this show from being serious action drama, which they're obviously leaning in with the crazy gore and brutality of the kills, but you put a grunt in who's just saying all these funny like quips and stuff, that could easily switch it from action to comedy real quick.
Yeah, true. But again, I think that is something that they had a lot of success with the game. So I don't know. I would love to see it. Even just as another Easter egg, I think would be a good thing to have.
Oh yeah, like even if they just sort of go into, like when they went into the cave, if there was just one in there and he just got blasted straight away, I'd been like, okay, that's cool. That's all I need.
Yeah. Yeah, there is a lot more that they have options to move towards, I guess. I'm really excited though for the storyline as far as it. They never really covered in the game the kind of origin story, which I think is something that they can really kind of build into.
Yeah, I think they're really leaning into the modified humans as the super soldiers as sort of the key part of this story. I'm excited to see Cortana finally appear as well. I think that'll be a really hype, epic moment, which hopefully now that episode 3 just dropped is hopefully in that episode, I guess. We'll see.
Did that come out today?
Yep. It came out like an hour before we started recording. I was like, damn.
I was watching the other one this morning and it wasn't out. So, okay. Something to watch.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's pretty much all I've got for Halo, sort of only 2 episodes in, but we'll see how it progresses over the next couple of episodes. I am still very mixed on it though. Like, I feel like this would have been cool as a movie with a big sort of epic budget, although the budget for this show is apparently massive.
I have heard that, which frustrated me when I heard that and then saw the CGI, because you'd think that's one of the top things you're going to spend on. Yeah,
apparently they've spent over $90 million on this show, whether that's, I feel like a lot of that has gone into marketing, maybe, rather than CG. Like they probably should have put a bit
Yeah,
more into CG, less in marketing. Like just the Halo name is going to sell this show.
definitely.
So we'll see. And now a quick word from our sponsors. First up is Decorate and Dance. For them, life is a party. With the world reopening and parties now becoming much more viable, if you're hosting a party, then all of the ingredients you need for a good time start with the 3Ds: design, decorate, and dance. You can't have a party without a theme, design, balloons, florals, and decorations, and some good tunes, dancing. The team over at Decorate and Dance can provide it all. Specializing in kids' parties, adult parties, hens nights, baby showers, corporate events, and weddings, Decorate and Dance are your one-stop shop. Book a designer, decorations, and a DJ for your party to be remembered at www.decorateanddance.com.au. Next up is LF9 Designs. Are you in need of a new logo, event posters, Twitch overlays or emotes, or perhaps even merchandise designs? Look no further than LF9 Design for all of your graphic design needs. The team at LF9 Design can create anything that you need to suit all styles. Check them out on Instagram at LF9 Design. Maison de Femmes create romantic, handmade, gold-filled jewelry for lovers and dreamers. Each piece is handmade and personally shipped by Jess Kumanovsky of Australia. If you are looking for an amazing and unique piece for a loved one, then look no further than Maison de Femmes. Maison de Femmes can be found online at maisondefemmes.com. That's MAISONDEFEMMES.com. And finally, Tegan Tag Photography. If you're ready for something a little different, ready to stray from the path of a traditional photo session, then get in touch with Tegan Tag Photography. Tegan specializes in water photography, family photo sessions, maternity shoots, and any type of photography incorporating Mother Nature. Bookings with Tegan can be made online at tegantag.com.au. That's www.teegantagg.com.au. The other show actually got me to sit down and watch regular TV, which is very rare. Free-to-air TV, Underbelly, Vanishing Act. What did you think of this new installation in the Underbelly franchise?
I didn't mind it as much as what I think you hated it. Like, the Underbelly is one of those, again, it's one of those shows that I think, like Halo, just by the name, it's going to get me to watch it. Watching all the different series and things, I found it really, really good. As far as Australian television goes, I think it's probably one of the best things we've ever produced as a consistent mini-series style show.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the problem with this series following, it's Melissa Caddick, wasn't it?
Yep.
Yeah, and following her story, I think, and for people that don't know the story of her being that she basically got caught making a Ponzi scheme, suckered $40 million plus out of her friends, family, and a bunch of her so-called clients, that she just would take their money, pretend to invest it, and basically just spend it on cars and her hairdresser boyfriend and herself and dresses and clothes and all sorts of stuff, who then basically got caught, went missing, and then her foot washed up inside of a shoe, sort of 10 hours south on the south coast, only a year ago.
Yeah, her foot washed up, I think, 2021 or something. Yeah, she was investigated. Yeah. The investigation started on November 12, 2020, and then her foot showed up in February 2021.
Yeah, so I mean, super recent, and I think that's probably where the problem started with this. It's a story that really kind of encapsulated the country. Like, you don't often have a foot wash up inside of a shoe from someone that just got caught in this massive financial crime. So I think immediately you're going to suck people in with that story. But I think the problem that you might have had, that I did have a little bit with the show, was that there's still so much mystery surrounding what happened to her, where they're not sure if it was a suicide, because she obviously lived quite close to the Gap, which is a massive cliff in Sydney that's pretty well known for people committing suicide off of, or whether somebody got her for what she did to their money, which wouldn't surprise me considering the amounts of money she was working with. I think she'd taken upwards of $4 million from individual clients. So that's a potential that someone's come out to get her, or whether she had enough money and enough forethought, I guess, to make a giant escape plan and, I guess, sever her own foot as a big red herring. But I guess the problem at the end of all that is that, as far as Underbelly and a show is concerned, compared to all the other Underbellies that they'd made, they knew what happened in all the other Underbellies. They're completed stories. And in this scenario, they just went with a story that they weren't quite sure about, and they just made up potential endings and left it open-ended, which they're going to have to do because they don't know anything different to anybody else in the country. So, yeah, I mean, it did frustrate me, because the bits that I liked about the other Underbelly shows was that it gave you facts and it made you go, wow, that actually happened, or wow, that actually happened in Sydney, in Darlinghurst, or in Melbourne, or wherever it happened. But this one, you're going, wow, I wonder if that happened. And it got frustrating. It was only a 2-episode show, but by the end of it, yeah, the open-endedness to it was a bit frustrating.
Yep. Yeah, that was sort of my big problem, where the ending just... Essentially, it felt like I watched these 2 episodes, and the last 10 or 15 minutes, they were basically just like, oh yeah, that 2 or 3 hours you just watched, that was just totally made up bullshit. That you've just wasted 2 hours of your life watching this show that is essentially just a totally made up story, but we're portraying it as factual. Like,
yeah,
I think of, like, the Underbelly show, I think of as, obviously it's a dramatization, but it's based on actual facts throughout the entire story. So like that very first season of Underbelly about the gangland wars in Melbourne, that's still the top tier for me. The King of the Cross, the John Ibrahim one, that was also really good in my opinion. But this one, like I said, because it is sort of still so recent, like we said, it's not even 2 years ago, or basically almost exactly 2 years ago now, that this all sort of went down. It's still in the courts. Like there's still people fighting to try and get some of their money that has been seized by the government back. So I feel like that probably played a part in what they could and couldn't show in this series. And thank God it was only 2 episodes. If this had been 8 or 10 like the other series have been, I'd have been even more pissed off. But yeah, I think because it's still in the courts, there would have been a lot of stuff that they couldn't show. They did have to fabricate a bit. But just the way it was presented, like I wouldn't have minded if they said, yes, we're going to sort of pose all these questions of this is potentially what happened. But the way that sort of first episode and 80% of the second episode put it out there, that they're like, this is what happened, then this happened, then this happened. And then this character got involved. And then at the end, it's like, hey, that guy didn't even exist. We just totally made that guy up. I was like, what the?
Yeah. I
was so annoyed at the end of this show.
The other thing that I really learned from watching that Underbelly in comparison to, like you're saying, the King's Cross one, the John Ibrahim and the Melbourne ones, is that there is nothing sexy about a Ponzi scheme. Like the other Underbellies had that real element of like danger and crime and like, I guess, a bit of violence and stuff mixed in there. But the very first episode where they had the scene of the hairdresser husband DJing
in their house. Oh my God, that was so cheesy.
It was the most cringe-worthy scene, and Underbelly isn't known for that. Like it's supposed to be about danger and cutting people with switchblades, and it was literally just a weird dude DJing badly in his dining room. Like it was, yeah, really awkward. And then I think at the end as well, they didn't just take, I guess it's not really a spoiler because there's no answer to what happened to Melissa Caddick, but that scene at the end where they were kind of taking you on the run of she had her foot severed and now she's on a yacht with a prosthetic foot. They just really took it too far in some weird directions, and it was very, very strange. And the story suckered me in. I wasn't as angry as you about it. But yeah, it was definitely cringeworthy and strange in parts.
Yeah, like the end did sort of pose the three sort of main theories that people have of, yeah, she just freaked out and committed suicide, or the one where they just made up the dude that sort of she took a ton of his money as to help him launder the money. That one really annoyed me. I was like, well, yeah, I very much doubt that's the case. And then the third one where they were like, oh yeah, she just escaped, but she cut off her foot as, like you said, a red herring. But like her body has never been found. That they've only found a foot, and you can survive without a foot. So I understand why that's a pretty big theory. But yeah, just very annoyed at it. And like you said, those first few seasons of Underbelly, like the Melbourne one in particular, that's all about people like assassinating each other and murdering people in front of kids. Like that is a scary season where it's like, that is full on, I can't believe some guy shot two people in their car at their kid's footy game. Like,
yeah.
Whereas this one is kind of like, this one's just a lady that pretended to be a financial advisor, swindled a pool guy, a pool cleaner, took all his money, and then took all his family's money and her friend's family's money, and then just doctored up reports essentially to say, hey, we invested this much and you got this much back. But the only way she could ever pay those people back that money was if she kept getting more and more people involved.
I don't know, like mind-boggling that someone could do that to their, like her own parents, her best friend. Like, pretty outrageous.
Yeah, like I was stunned that she did it to her best friend and her parents, but it still was just kind of like, whatever. Some of the acting was really bad too.
Yeah.
Like you said, the DJ boyfriend, scene. Horrible. That was such a bad... That was like a rich guy, a rich producer looked at that and went, this is what a music producer does, and this is how a DJ acts. I was like, this is so bad.
Yeah.
And the ASIC investigator, the woman.
Yeah.
Why was she so hostile?
Yeah.
Like she was just rude.
Yeah, I think that's because they were trying to make it more dirty and dangerous and gritty than it probably actually ever was. Like it was, I can't imagine them being much like that. Like I can't really imagine the ASIC investigator listening to heavy metal in her Bluetooth headphones from the very first scene when you see her. And they were instantly trying to make it a bit more gangster and crazy than it probably was. But yeah, you bring up the acting. I think the person that I feel the worst for is her son, that's probably having this all dragged back up for him when it's still really quite fresh. Even the husband to some degree. I don't think in these situations that people pretend that they had no idea what was going on. And I'm sure people that are married to actual gangsters or drug dealers or whatever that are living some pretty high rolling lives that just have a lot of money coming in, but play dumb to where it comes from. I don't think you completely
just assume that they just assume their bricklayer partner is making millions of dollars. Like,
yeah, like I don't think that's ever a good excuse. But I mean, for a son who was born into that and had no opportunity to say yes, no, or otherwise to what was going on around him, to then have that dragged back through not only the court system at the moment. I know the house that he's living in is still that house, but it looks like they're going to seize that to obviously make some money for the people that were swindled by her. For him to be dragged through again and have a show of his mum publicized, and it's not even ended, and it's not even a very good storyline for a show, I think is pretty ruthless on Channel 9's behalf and of the Underbelly producing staff's behalf. It's, yeah, I know it rubbed me up a bit the wrong way to know that that's still all very fresh for him.
Oh yeah, very. Like you said, his mum is still not technically dead. She's just missing at the moment.
Yeah.
Because until they find a body or definitive proof that she's dead, like you can live without a foot, so she could still be alive, and she's technically still just a missing person. yeah, pretty rough on the kid. But yeah, it just felt like, especially with the ads that they had for the Sydney Morning Herald Channel 9 collaborative podcast, it felt like this show was purely an advertising part of their advertising marketing budget to sort of be like, let's put this show out and try and get people to listen to the podcast. Like, it just felt weird.
Yeah, you made me think just then. I was watching it as a stream off of the app on the Apple TV, but I don't know why, and I don't know what chance it happened, but the ad that popped up after that episode, whole thing had finished, like going underwater and all the rest of it, and the foot had been in the shoe decomposed. The very next ad instantly popped up was like the John West tuna ad where they were pulling things out of the ocean.
Oh,
And
God.
I was like, no, like, you can't have that come on right now.
That's bad timing.
Oh, yeah, it didn't make me want John West tuna, that's for sure.
And yeah, like, because this is in the court, I was surprised that they even got away with airing this. Like, remember when that first Underbelly came out, there was all the controversy about, hey, what can we and can't we show? Like, I remember that first season didn't air in Victoria because it was still in the courts and they didn't want to influence juries. But I guess because this one is just going to federal court and is being heard by a judge, not a public jury, that's probably the loophole they got away with being able to show this. But it was just like, when they were advertising it, I was like, how are they going to do this? We don't know the answers. It's still in court. This is just asking for a lawsuit, I feel.
I think that just points to how black and white a lot of it probably is when you got financial records and again, how unsexy financial crime itself is, that they don't need a jury. So there's probably not a lot going on. There's not much opinion involved in it. It's just very easily proven. She's taken this amount of dollars and spent it on this. I can't imagine once they're onto somebody that it's that hard for ASIC to work out where it's all gone, which also made me wonder about the money laundering scenario that they were trying to make up. Like, I can't see her being someone that could even launder her own money, let alone somebody else's.
Yeah, because she's, especially when this, was it George character, just gave her bags of cash, so she didn't even have a deposit stream coming in to be like, okay, this much came in and then this much went out. Like, it was just kind of like,
they made up story didn't make sense.
I'm just going to take this bag of cash down to the South Coast and go down there and pick out some money when I need some cash.
Yeah, and I don't know how she was expected to give that back to George as laundered money, you know? Like, as soon as they did it, I was like, well, surely that's already the problem that she's having.
Yeah, unless she actually... Well, she couldn't because she wasn't licensed. But unless she actually invested it the right way and got returns back and then maybe topped it up a bit with the Ponzi scheme money.
Yeah.
It was just, the whole fake. I was very annoyed. At the end of the 2 hours, I was like, wow, my time watching Married at First Sight was better spent than watching this.
Big claim.
At least Married at First Sight was bloody entertaining. This was just a waste of my 2 hours. And it was a late
probably
night.
About the same amount of believability.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, you're Wigan, brah.
Oh my God, that guy. But did you watch Married at First Sight?
My wife has 100% banned that show in our house.
Ah, that's right.
Yeah, absolutely hates it. Thinks it's the most stupid experiment on the planet, and that it devalues marriage. And you know what? I'm pretty much on her team. I think I can laugh at it a lot more than she can, but yeah. It's very trash TV.
Yeah, they hooked me in with the storyline of the girl that leaked the other girl's OnlyFans photo, and just like the revenge porn aspect of that. I was like, this is full on. These people are terrible human beings.
I don't understand how this many seasons in and this many violently failed marriages that
people still want to go on there.
Call themselves experts.
True.
You're clearly not an expert. You're just
you're
there
not
for the drama.
You got a 20% hit rate. Like,
If I went to work and only 1 out of 5 kids that went into my class learned how to read, they wouldn't call me an expert.
Yeah, you wouldn't have a job anymore.
But they do.
That's a good point. I did see 2 of the guys from the show at a screening this week. That was interesting. I walked in, I was like,
autograph?
"Yeah, I know that guy." No, I was just like, "I know that guy." What? Oh, yeah, that's right. Weird. I think that's the only reason people go on this show now too.
Yeah, a bit of notoriety, but it's very quick. Like, it's very 15 minutes of fame.
Yeah, unless like they manage to become one of the major plot lines and then they get some sort of radio gig out of it.
Yeah.
I think that's enough terrible crap for this week.
Quality things only next podcast.
Surely we can't do any worse.
I tried to get you to do June.
Yeah, you tried to get me to do June like 3 days out from recording with a 3-hour movie in the middle of the week. Thanks for that.
Well, if you didn't waste all your time on Underbelly, you would have had extra.
I know, right? I could have watched it on Sunday. I wish I had. I would have been able to go to bed earlier and would have been better satisfied because that was terrible.
Yeah, there you go. Oh, lesson learned.
What would be your top recommendation for the week?
Like I said, slow start, but I'm sticking with Halo. As a Halo fan, I can't complain for 20 odd years that it hasn't come out and then give up 2 episodes in. So I'm sticking with it.
Yep. Yeah, we might revisit that when it finishes and see how we feel once the full season's out. For me, my top recommendation is avoid Underbelly Vanishing Act like it's the plague or coronavirus. You don't want it. Alrighty, thank you everyone for listening to the commentary booth. If you enjoyed the show, please remember to rate, review, and subscribe on podcast services and on YouTube. You can follow me on social media at JamieAppsMedia Media and at Pario Magazine. And you can follow Buddy on Instagram at a.b_CSEE.
Thank you.
The commentary booth is a fan-funded production of Jamie Apps Media. You can support the podcast alongside our magazine, Pario Magazine, on Patreon at patreon.com/JamieAppsMedia. The following people supported at the community support group level or higher, and you cannot fathom how incredibly appreciative we are for their support. Brian and June Hart, Blake Robinson, Karina Renee, Courtney Paulson, Darren Hatcliffe, Jackson Carr, and Tracy Apps.